What's up, everybody? Jess here, back at it again with my girlfriend Lacey. We've been talking about relationships. So you've heard us talk about dating 101. You've heard us talk about, what was part 2?
I don't know.
We shot these out of order.
We shot them out of order. We're just trying to put together some content for you guys because Jess has been absent for a while, so we want to bring her back to your life because I think she has a lot to offer.
We're reviving this thing.
There it
and
is.
Today we're talking about fighting fair. It's inevitable, right? Like you're going to have your first fight. The honeymoon phase is going to be over. The real life begins after COVID. PC, post-COVID. AC, after COVID. And so today we want to talk about fighting fair. And the reason why I prompted this topic is because when we got into a fight, yes, actually, we do look like the perfect couple. And we are. However, we're humans and you get into arguments. And I think that comes from honesty. If you're honest with the person that you're with, you're not always going to agree on every single thing. Wouldn't you agree?
I would agree, and I also would say that fighting is important in a relationship. If you don't fight, I think that that's problematic. We fight, and there's a thing about fighters is that we like to fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we both fought a lot in relationships, and we've had different partners, and we just want to talk to you about all the different types of fighting styles.
Fighting styles.
We want to talk to you about fighting styles.
That's why we're dressed, like, if you haven't seen, like, we're animals.
Yeah, we're animals.
I'm a cheetah, and Lacey's a snake. And it's very mimics life because we are animals, and innately we want to fight.
I think so. I think that people are innately holding their crazy under the surface. People want to yell at each other. People want to cry all the time. People want to, when people are mean to you, don't you want to like hit them sometimes?
Don't you want to punch them?
You know how much anger you hold back in a day, and then when you're with the person you love the most,
you let it out.
Sometimes you let it out because you're allowed to be your true self in front of them. And here we are with our topic, fighting.
Fighting fair. And so there's a couple of different styles of fighting that we'll go over and we'll touch on lightly, and then we'll talk about what our personal fighting styles are and how you can there's a bomb. I said to her, I think I was like, my analogy is that I'm a ticking time bomb, and you know when you see the cartooned bombs and it's got the little string and like it sizzles up to the string right before it explodes? She knows how to diffuse.
I know how to disable the bomb.
She disables the bomb. She's a bomb disabler, and I think that's a skill that needs to be shared with the masses.
Oh, that's why we're doing this episode.
Yeah, it really is. It's
fun.
all about how to disable your husband or wife or girlfriend or boyfriend. Or
Yeah.
yourself, maybe.
Totally.
So types of fighting.
Yeah, there's a couple different types of fighting that I've experienced. I think they're universal to fighters. I think there's the depressed fighter.
I don't know this one.
We'll talk about them. The depressed fighter, the toxic fighter, the angry, passionate fighter. That's me. That's you.
That's me.
Angry, passionate fighter. There's the cold.
Oh, yeah. Stone cold. Couldn't do it.
And then there's the ones that won't fight.
They're like robots.
They won't fight.
I do not compute.
When you're with a passionate, angry fighter and you're someone that doesn't like to fight, you're in trouble because they're going to yell all the time and you're not going to fight back, and then they're going to yell more.
And you're going to feel like you're being bulldozed the whole time, but it's because they want to passionately fight, and you're just like, whoa, 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 whoa.
They like to fight a little. And
you don't.
People think that's wrong, that people fight. I think fighting is healthy sometimes because you can't communicate with each other. That's why it happens. You haven't been communicating with each other properly, and over time, someone gets depressed. Depressed fighter.
What does that look like?
It's an interesting fighter. They're very depressed, and you don't know why, and that's why they're fighting. And the more depressed they get, you don't realize they're depressed about you, but they don't tell you, so they get more depressed. And then they just sit there all depressed, and you're not like, there's no fighting, but there's this like weird
energy in the room.
There's this weird energy in the room where you're not communicating. Someone's just getting depressed. And then eventually one day they explode and they have all this resentment and they say, how could you not take out the trash? Why didn't you do this? That way you smiled at that girl. I needed your help that one day and you weren't there for me. You're never there for me. And it's like,
You're like, wow, you just word vomited a year onto me. And if you had just said to me as it was building up,
I didn't know you were depressed. Like, I didn't know that's why.
Yeah.
We could have nipped this in the bud with a little fight in the beginning, but you just got more and more depressed. So there's the depressed fighter.
That's not me.
Yeah, and it ends in this explosion of there's no healing it because they've built up so much resentment towards you.
That you just can't come back from that.
No. Then there's the toxic fighter. This is one that many experience in their relationship.
I've experienced this.
And they call you names.
Oh, I've not
They
done that.
yeah, they call you names. They swear at you.
Oof.
And they bring up things from the past that they said they wouldn't.
Oh!
Resolved issues coming back in the fight.
Unresolved. Unresolved.
Don't say an issue is resolved
If
and
it's
then
not.
throw it back in the fight.
Also, that's a respect thing. I would never say, by the way, I do not think it's okay to name call. That's not fighting fair. This is called fighting fair because there's a lot of things you shouldn't do and you should never name call. Disrespect.
Words are words. Unfortunately, you can't take them back and people remember.
It's like toothpaste. Once it's out of the tube, you can't shove it back in the tube.
It's like toothpaste.
It's true, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's, I had such a good idea and I forgot what it was. Damn.
The won't fighting?
No, what were we just talking about? Angry
Cold.
fighter, toxic fighter. Yeah,
Toxic fighter.
throwing words, you can't put them back.
Or throwing wrenches.
Yeah. It's just like you can't swear at someone, you can't yell at them. It just ends badly. And then the other person doesn't know how to fight, so they start fighting back the same way, and it just gets really ugly and your relationship becomes toxic, and that's why it ends eventually.
Physical violence is also a form of toxicity. You know,
Right.
and throwing things. I'm a big yeller because we'll talk about this later, but I'll just say this. I'm a big yeller and I like to throw things or move things because I just want there to be like a physical emotion to how I'm feeling inside. More on that later. Okay, cold fighting. What's that?
Cold fighting is where they
Or like the ice queen?
there's no response, and that is their response. They're fighting without words, and you can feel how angry and upset they are, but they won't give you anything.
No
And
energy.
when you try to snuggle them, or you try to go, I'm sorry, they're not having it.
What do? They just do nothing?
You
Like, I'll
wait
do it.
until the cold storm ends. This
So
could
it
last
thaws.
a week.
It could thaw.
This could last a month. No one knows.
But what does it look like? I'm sorry, baby. What did I do to make you angry? I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Oh, I better never see the cold side. Really? So they say it's okay, but it's not.
It's not okay. Or here's the thing. I think when you want to yell at someone and let's say you have an unresolved issue, okay? Because that's what it all comes from, communication that's not happening. You need to communicate to the person instead of saying, it's okay.
It's not okay.
Instead of saying, it's not okay, say, I hear you. I hear what you're saying. This isn't resolved. We're going to have to continue talking about this. And I hear you. I need to process this information. Maybe I need to go to therapy to talk it through because I'm being irrational. I don't know. You're being irrational. Maybe you need to go to therapy, but we need to keep talking about this issue so that you don't bring it up again in a fight.
That's also a very evolved way of thinking. That is a emotionally intelligent person, because a lot of people, and I'm guilty of this, I've not fought like that since ever. I just began fighting fairly with Lacey because you do that thing where you're just conditioned to like, you're not hearing me, so I'm just gonna get louder and louder and louder. Oh, you're still not hearing me? You're gonna see me. I'm gonna throw some shit at your face.
I got it. You have to understand your partner's fighting style.
Yes.
We are all
Fighting
warriors. We all fight.
Ah!
You're going to fight somehow. You will fight and you'll be angry. You'll be the depressed fighter, the toxic fighter, the cold fighter, or the won't
Passionate
fight at all.
fighter.
You'll be some sort of a fighter. That's what you're not fighting. Anyway, we understand each other's style. So what I understand with the yeller, let's break down. Let's disable the bomb.
Yeah, I'm the yeller.
Let's break down. So Jess is not toxic. She's not going to swear at me. She's not going to say mean, horrible things.
No.
But she's going to get real. I know that about her. She's a really good person. She's going to get really, really mad to the point where you're like, what's happening? And it's only because I haven't, the reason she's yelling, because she's a sweet person, human, is she wants me to hear her. And she thinks if she talks louder, that then maybe I'll hear her. And I'm like, I hear you.
You don't have to yell.
And what happened?
So, case in point, this all began because I went through all of the phases of, what did you call it?
Grief.
All the phases of grief where I was silent and I was just looking off into space.
Wait, why did this happen?
We had a fight.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and hence my fighting style came up.
Yeah.
I was cold, I'm not cold, but just distant, and then I was sad and I was very weepy.
She was crying.
I was crying.
She
like
cried
that.
herself to sleep.
That
While
kind
I
of
was
crying.
sleeping.
Yeah,
I
wasn't going to
this.
wake her up. That's how sweet I am. I wasn't going to wake her up to say I'm not okay. And then it was angry, and I was passionate angry, and I want to yell.
We do these workout videos together, and we were doing this workout video for my company. We were doing a Zoom workout thing. Jess and I do this. And before the workout started, we were both like looking at each other.
Quiet.
She was not talking to me, and I was like, she is so mad. Camera goes on, we're like, hey, welcome to Zoom. Here we are today. Good morning. This is Jess and I'm Lacey. And then when the camera ended, I go,
broke down.
Are you mad at me? She like walks out of the room. I go, oh no. And then I'm like, I literally said to her out loud, I go, I don't know if I should hold you or if I should give you your distance. I'm not sure which one you want.
I'm not a distance
Jess
person.
doesn't want distance.
I don't like distance.
But I think I needed distance for a second because I was like, well, I don't even know how to process this feeling that you were giving towards me because it's strong. Like she has a passionate vibration where you're like, this is a fight.
I love passionately and I'm angry passionately.
This is a fight. So she's in the kitchen. I go in there. I can feel her pacing. I can tell she kind of wants me to go. So I go in there. And I ask her, and she says, I don't need distance, so that means come. And she's sitting on the floor.
It's so dramatic.
She's sitting on the floor in the kitchen. And I'm like, oh boy. And then I walk in there, and then she starts to talk really loud, and what did I do? This could go badly.
This
What I
could
did. You
go
need to be
very
careful
badly.
with the move I just did. I have neighbors that I like, so anyway.
I was starting to raise my voice and I'm like, if you, and she goes,
I shushed her.
she shushed me, but in the most gentle, most loving, safe way where I didn't feel like I was being shushed. She wasn't like, shut up, quiet your voice, you're being too loud, be quiet, you're being crazy. Oh, don't, please never ever tell someone they're being crazy.
Yeah.
You haven't seen crazy till you call them crazy. And in that moment when she did that, it allowed me, honestly, to like hear the tone I was in, and I'm like, I'm here, I'm gonna take it to here. And because I love her and respect her, I took it down a notch.
She took it down a
And
notch.
I didn't scare our neighbors.
I realized that what I had done, she needed me to. I had called someone that was that we were both in a little bit of a fight with, and it was upsetting me so much that I called her, and I didn't tell her that I called her, and
Yeah.
she was like, you should have told me.
Communication is everything.
And I was like, oh, I didn't think it was a big deal, but it was a big deal to her.
So two things. One,
So I heard that.
she heard me and she validated how I was feeling, because I think a lot of times when you fight with someone, you're so defensive of your own feelings that you can't see where they're coming from, and you don't hear why they're hurt. And then they just get louder and they yell because you can't hear them, and they're just like, just see my pain and validate how I'm feeling. You can feel how you feel, but also understand how I'm feeling, and you did both of those things. You understood how I was feeling, you validated them, and then you were like, I hear you.
But also at the same time, I had my own opinion. I wasn't just being a doormat, which is
No.
what people do. They go, okay, baby, like whatever you say, but they don't mean it. Like I told her my perspective and why it was never my intention to hurt you. It was never my intention. And you were like,
It hurt her.
it hurt, and this is what I need you to do. And I was like, oh, that's easy for me to do. I will always do that for you. I didn't know it was that big of a deal. But had we not had this fight, this could have happened again in another scenario. Had I not listened to her, it would have been really bad, because it's clear to me that Jess just wants to know just wants to know what I'm doing.
I just want to know what she's doing at all times. Who are you talking to? What are you saying? For how long are you talking? I'm kidding. But 3 things, like they want to be heard, they want their feelings validated, and then it's a conversation. It's not a yelling, screaming match. I think when you're yelling and you're screaming and you're calling each other names, you lose respect for each other. And if there's no respect, then there's no real foundation. Because if there's no respect, there's no friendship. And you have to be friends first. And we decided, we established that a long time ago, that friends always, friends first, and hence our fighting communication is amazing. My communication in general has never been good, because I bottle things up and I usually swallow them,
Yeah.
until you can't take any more shit, and then something happens, you take one more bite full of bullshit, and then you just word vomit 2 years onto the person, and they're like, but I didn't even know this was a problem in the first place. You could have just told me you wanted me to pick up my towel, but now you're throwing towels at me.
Yeah, and a big part of fighting is people are dishonest with themselves. That's an issue. You have to be completely honest with yourself and honest with the other person, and you can't be worried that they're going to leave you.
Right.
Because if you're not honest with them, you're living a lie, and living a lie for your life is not happy. This is why people become alcoholics and cheat on their partners, or drugs, or workaholics, because they're not living their own truth in a relationship, because they are afraid to be honest with their partner.
Because they don't want to be alone, or they don't know themselves. Know your value, know who you are, know you bring to the table, and know that the person's not going to leave you because you're upset about something. And if they are, that's not the reason why they're leaving you. There's lots of layers to relationships, and there's something that happened, I don't even think you knew that we were going to talk about this, but in the very beginning stages of our relationship, I do this thing where I turn lights off, and you leave lights on, or I shut containers and she leaves containers open, and it doesn't bother me. I'll go behind her and shut off lights and close containers, and she's like, no. You have to let me know, because you think it's not an issue now, but it will eventually become an issue, and then one day you'll be screaming at me because I don't close lids. And I was like, I never thought about that. You don't think, in the beginning it's so sweet, and you cushion things, and it's honeymooning, and you have a lot more patience, and you hold a lot more space for the person.
Yeah.
And as time goes on, you hold a lot less space, and your patience wears thin, and you just don't have it in you to almost compensate for those behaviors. Nip those behaviors in the bud and express yourself in communication.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, communication is important, and silence is a form of communication as well. If you don't talk to them, you're breaking the down communication and the relationship.
Lack of communication and a breakdown of communication is that's the number one reason why people fight, other than money and vulnerability. A lot of people don't want to fight and be honest because they don't want to be vulnerable. I'm one of those people who it's really hard for me to find my tear ducts and cry. So if I'm crying, she's fucked up. I'm really hurt. But it's hard for me to be in a vulnerable place to say to you, this is how it's making me feel. Because it's almost like giving that person power. And if you've been hurt over and over in relationships, then giving someone else power in any type of relationship is really scary. And it's not that you're giving them power, you're just stepping into your own power and saying, this is how I feel, I want to communicate that to you, and then you're sharing that space together. It's not even really being powerless. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. I think that fighting is good. It's good to fight. Sometimes I think that you have to figure out, the key thing is you have to figure out your partner's fighting style. I know they have the love languages, but there should be a book called Fighting Style, because it's when you love someone, you're gonna fight, and I don't care what language you guys are speaking. It's part of relationships. It's love and cuddles and fighting. It's all part of it.
That's all interwoven into relationships.
And you just have to be loving to each other. Always think about the other person.
Respect.
Feelings, respect. And, if you're a cold fighter, you cold fighters out there, try to understand, if you're with a passionate fighter, you're killing their spirit. You're really hurting them. And if you're a passionate fighter and you're with a cold person, lower your tone. They're not going to listen to you.
They're not going to hear you.
They're never,
They'll just get colder.
they'll get colder. So you guys are killing each other with your fighting styles.
Because it's just like love languages. If you're not speaking the same love languages, then you're also not speaking the same fighting styles. Because that is a love language. Fighting kind of is a love language. It's a form of passion.
Yeah.
Like, we're talking about healthy arguing, by the way, and not like chucking wrenches at heads and being physical. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about arguments and having adult conversations and talking about feelings and the things that bother you in a relationship before they become bigger issues.
Totally.
Fighting fair. We want to know, what is your fighting style and what does fighting fair mean to you? You know what I'm saying? Let us know in the comments below what else you want us to talk about, and we will see you very soon.